I was 16 when I found my mother crying on the kitchen floor at 2 a.m., holding a stack of unpaid bills in one hand and a bottle of pills in the other. That night is burned into my brain forever. And I promise you, by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why that moment on the floor changed everything for both of us. If you've ever felt like life keeps kicking you while you're already down, stay with me. Because this isn't just my story. This might be your story too. Where it all started. My name is Marcus. And for most of my childhood, home wasn't really a home. It was a small basement apartment we rented from a man who owned half the buildings on our street. My mom, Elena, cleaned houses for a living. Big houses. Houses with more bathrooms than we had rooms total. She'd leave before sunrise and come back after dark, smelling like other people's floor cleaner, with her knees aching and her back bent just a little more every single year. I never met my dad. He wasn't around, and my mom didn't like talking about it. All she'd say was, "Some men run when things get hard, baby. We're not runners. We're stayers." So we stayed. Through everything. One of the houses she cleaned belonged to a man named Walter Kingston. If you've never heard that name, let's just say, he owned an empire. Real estate, tech investments, a chain of hotels across 3 continents. The kind of man whose name showed up in business magazines I used to flip through at the library, just to see a world I thought I'd never touch. You might be wondering, why am I telling you about some rich stranger? Because that stranger is the reason I'm standing here today, telling you this story at all. The old man in the study. When I was around 11, my mom started bringing me to work with her during summer break because she couldn't afford childcare. Most of the time, I sat quietly in a corner with a book while she worked. One day, Walter Kingston caught me reading a business textbook I found on his shelf. I thought I was in huge trouble. Instead, he sat down across from me and asked, "Do you understand any of that?" I nodded, terrified. He smiled. And from that day on, every summer, he'd spend an hour or 2 with me, teaching me things school never bothered to teach. How money works. How to read a contract. How to spot a bad deal before it ruins you. Most people don't fail because they're not smart, he told me once. They fail because nobody ever showed them the rules of the game. He wasn't just teaching me business. Looking back now, I think he was teaching me hope. But hope, when you're poor, always comes with a price. And his family made sure I paid it. The weight gets heavier. Walter had 2 kids. His son, Preston, made it his mission to remind me constantly that I didn't belong anywhere near his father's world. Charity case. He'd whisper whenever his father wasn't looking. Enjoy it while it lasts. I never told my mom about those comments. She had enough to carry. By the time I was 15, our situation at home had gotten worse. My mom developed a heart condition, years of exhausting labor stress, and skipped meals had finally caught up to her body. The medication alone cost more than she made in 2 weeks. That's the night I found her on the kitchen floor. Not because she wanted to hurt herself, she needed me to know that clearly, even in that moment, but because she was so overwhelmed, so exhausted from trying to hold everything together alone, that she just broke down completely. I got a job that same week. After school shifts at a warehouse, lying about my age to get hired. I'd come home at 11 p.m., do homework until 1 a.m., sleep for 4 hours, and do it all again. You'd think Walter would have just paid for everything, right? He offered. More than once. My mother refused every single time. I earn what I have, Marcus. I won't have people whispering that I only got ahead because I let a rich man buy my pride. I respected her. But some nights, lying awake, I hated that pride too. Pride doesn't pay medical bills. The night everything shifted. When I was 17, Walter Kingston died of a sudden stroke. I remember my mom telling me, and I remember she didn't cry right away. She just sat very still, like she was trying to process the loss of someone who had quietly shaped both our lives. The funeral was enormous. Business partners, reporters, 3 former mayors. My mom and I stood near the back, the way staff always does, even in death. Then came the will reading. We weren't supposed to be there, but his lawyer specifically requested us. Preston lost it the second we walked in. "Why is the maid here?" he said loud enough for the entire room to hear. The lawyer opened the will and read something that made the entire room go dead silent. Walter Kingston had left controlling ownership of Kingston Global, his entire empire, to me. Not Preston. Not his daughter. Me. I couldn't breathe. I actually thought I misheard him. Then the lawyer read a letter Walter had written, specifically for this moment. "Marcus, if you're hearing this, I'm gone. I chose you not because you're family by blood, but because you're family by character. You watched your mother sacrifice everything without complaint, and you learned dignity from her before you ever learned business from me. That's rarer than any fortune I built. Take care of her. Take care of what I built. And never let money make you forget where you came from." I looked at my mother. She wasn't crying from sadness anymore. She was crying because, after everything, every double shift, every ache in her knees, every silent sacrifice, someone had finally seen it. The empire almost broke me. I wish I could tell you everything got easy after that. It didn't. Honestly, it got harder in a completely different way. Preston sued to overturn the will. He claimed I manipulated a dying old man, that I didn't deserve a cent of what his father built. I sat through months of depositions, lawyers twisting every innocent conversation Walter and I ever had into something sinister. The business world didn't respect me either. Executives twice my age looked at an 18-year-old controlling billions and either laughed at me or tried to rob me blind. I almost lost an entire hotel division to a trusted advisor who saw a scared kid and smelled opportunity. And through all of it, my mother's heart condition kept getting worse. Here's the cruel irony that still keeps me up some nights. I finally had enough money to fix everything. But her heart had already been damaged by years of stress and exhaustion that piled up while we were too poor to get help sooner. Money can build an empire. It can't always undo years of silent suffering. She needed surgery. A serious one. And for weeks, I sat in hospital waiting rooms instead of boardrooms, terrified I was going to lose the only person who ever truly loved me, right after finally getting the power to protect her. The turning point. The moment that changed everything for me wasn't in a courtroom or a boardroom. It was in that hospital, the night before her surgery. My mom took my hand, the same tired hands that scrubbed floors for 15 years, and she said, "Marcus, whatever happens tomorrow, promise me one thing. Don't let this money turn you into someone who forgets the people scrubbing floors right now, the way I did. Remember them. Always." That promise became the foundation of everything I built after. I stopped trying to prove myself to people like Preston, people who inherited everything and understood nothing about struggle. Instead, I restructured parts of Kingston Global to guarantee fair wages, healthcare, and real support for every single employee, especially the ones nobody in a boardroom ever really sees. I started a foundation funding emergency medical bills for working families, so no other kid would ever have to find their mother crying on a kitchen floor at 2 a.m. because of bills they couldn't pay. Where I am now. My mom survived the surgery. She's doing well now. She lives with me, in a real home, one she finally owns outright, no landlord, no fear of eviction. She still insists on cooking most nights. "Some things," she says, "money doesn't get to take away from me." I run Kingston Global today. Preston eventually walked away from the company entirely, unable to accept a world where his last name alone wasn't enough anymore. And every single day, when I walk into that office, I remember exactly where I came from. A basement apartment. A mother crying on a kitchen floor. A kid who thought business magazines were the closest he'd ever get to that world. The lesson? If you take one thing from my story, let it be this. Whatever you're struggling with right now, the bills, the exhaustion, The fear that things will never get better, none of that defines your worth. It's just the chapter you're in, not the whole story. My mother scrubbed floors for over a decade, believing nobody was paying attention to her sacrifice. But someone was. And it changed both our lives forever. You never really know who's watching your quiet strength. You never know what your hard work today is silently building for tomorrow. So if you're in your own version of that kitchen floor moment right now, please keep going. Just one more day. One more shift. One more try. If this story touched you even a little, drop a comment below and tell me, what's one hard chapter in your life that you now realize was actually preparing you for something bigger? And if you want more real stories like this one, hit subscribe, because I've got a lot more to share with you. Thank you for listening to mine.